Based on your military backgrounds, the world has been interesting. How have you navigated the human side? Is it simply to say this is all story, or what's your mechanism?
The news these days has caused me to see how much of a story we're all telling. I was in an aircraft headed to England where my boss, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, I was his aide-de-camp, right-hand man. I was going to be with him to watch him be knighted by Queen Elizabeth, and we didn't get to do that. We had fighter jets join us to escort us back, and then we walked into the burning Pentagon. I spent a good 20 minutes asking the guides this past month, why do we focus so much on our stories? Why can't we just be? And why don't we set them aside? Within 10 minutes of asking that question, I had a very frightening experience, Michael.
Are you ready to shine? Shine bright.
Woo-hoo!
Hi, everyone. Welcome back. I'm Michael Sandler, your host on Inspire Nation. If you've ever wondered if there's life after life, and if so, how to connect with your loved ones, then do we have the Mediumship Show for you and the Making the Afterlife Connection show for you. Today, I'll be talking with Suzanne Giesemann, considered one of the world's most spiritually influential living people. What a double way to say that. And the most amazing author, teacher, and messenger of hope about her latest brilliant work, Making the Afterlife Connection. And that's just what I want to talk with her about today, about hearing from the afterlife, connecting with the other side, and what it says for all of humanity. So welcome back to the show, Suzanne. Are you ready to shine?
Oh, when I get with you, Michael, I can't help but shine. Let's do it.
Woohoo!
Woo!
All right. And thank you so much for joining me here today. This was I'm going to call it a divinated connection today. I know of no other way to put it. So I can't believe I'm going to start with this question. Suzanne, is humanity splitting or falling apart right now?
No more so than ever, Michael. Yeah. It appears that way because we're in the midst of it, and because of the way our media has developed. They now realize how great it is to cause us to be embroiled in drama. So they're fomenting it. They love that people feel the drama. I feel that's the difference. Social media and news make it appear that things are worse than they are. But this is life in human form. Dark and light, change, change, change. That's life.
What have the guides, thank you, what have the guides been telling you, your angels been telling you about this time period? And is there anything unique about it?
Unique only in, they say right now, unique only in the level of opportunities to practice surfing, which means riding the waves.
I went to a doctor's visit, as I was mentioning before, with my parents yesterday. And they're going down the brain rabbit hole. Let's just call it that right now, shall we say. And I get to a doctor's visit and they call us back, and then they say, no, you have to wait at the door. And they bring my mom in the back room, and she's been diagnosed with dementia. And they bring her in the back room and they say, you can't come in with her. And they lock the door on me. And there are people behind me in the doctor's office going, you shouldn't take that. You should go in. And I'm like, my mom needs somebody there with her. And they're like, you can't come in right now. That's policy. And I had to breathe in. Yes, there's a whole, and we did get to go with her eventually. But we had to surf that wave. And as you like to say, and it's so beautiful and apropos, it's all story.
It is. And to have tools to deal with the story, I'm feeling as you shared that story, I would have been standing there taking a breath and saying, isn't this interesting? And right away now that gives me the breathing room to say, okay, there are choices here about how to react. Because the human side wants to pound on the door and give in
And you
to
have
the
your military side too.
yeah, but you don't get the best results when you react only from the human side. If you can pause and say, isn't that interesting, and shift your focus to there is a higher viewpoint from the higher self, just the peace alone that engenders will help those around you to want to help you instead of putting up a wall that they can resist against.
Yes. And that's where to me, it helps both that space and to be able to connect, which we'll be talking about in a little bit, to say, is this okay? Am I all right here?
What do I do next? How do I respond to this? Just the act of pausing and asking higher consciousness acknowledges there's higher consciousness. You're not alone. You don't have to handle this alone. It's beautiful.
Thank you. So would you say right now that I think of it as nodes on a timeline, that many of the big events we're going through individually and collectively right now have been planned by our higher selves?
There's my little lip twitch from tuning into the guides. They are saying that what is planned are the opportunities, but what is unfolding is the result of each now moment building upon itself. So this is evolution. The fact that there is no time and space beyond this reality boggles the mind when we think that perhaps it's already happened. But here it's unfolding linearly. Was each of these events pre-planned? Not exactly, because that's where our free will and our choices come in. But it's definitely building. And so we knew, again, coming in here, there would be major challenges, and this is what we're facing.
Which I believe if we can step back far enough, we signed up for these. It's crazy to believe, but we totally signed up for them.
Yes. Knowing all is well at the level of the higher self and beyond. That's the key right there. When you experience that wellness in an expanded state of meditation, you can bring that back with you here. And that's what you accessed in that moment in the doctor's office, I'm sure.
Thank you. After a very human moment, I must fully admit.
Sure, but that's okay.
Yeah.
We talked in the last time we were together about my book, The Awakened Way. And one of the tools is using the analogy of a human soul dial within you. And when you reacted to that doctor's office, the human side was pegged to human side. But because you're used to having the soul awareness, the other side, it covers the whole spectrum, the soul. But because you're used to that, you notice the contrast. And then we're able to dial it down.
So let's go from there. I want to talk real briefly. We've mentioned it many times, so we don't need to go in great detail, but it feels important to go to a little bit of your story, and it is all story, because talk about going from human side to connecting with the other side and bringing it right into center. When we talk about big events, where were you? What happened with 911?
I was in the last aircraft in U.S. airspace after every other aircraft had been downed. I was in an aircraft headed to England where my boss, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, I was his aide de camp, right-hand man. I was going to be with him to watch him be knighted by Queen Elizabeth. And we didn't get to do that because we got word. And I, at the chairman's directions, told the pilot to take us back to Washington. We had fighter jets join us to escort us back. And then we walked into the burning Pentagon after flying directly over the smoke coming up from Manhattan.
What was the human side reaction?
You mean people did this to other people? You mean this was deliberate? How could people be so filled with hatred that they would do something like this? And those people that were sitting at their offices in what is now a gaping hole were just like me. Why were they there? Why? That was what was going through my head.
And then that precipitated you. I don't know how the discussion went with your husband, who is a retired commander, if I understand.
Captain. He was captain. I
Captain,
was a
excuse me.
commander. Captain outranks commander.
And you said it's time to retire.
I did. I said, one of those commanders who was killed on 9/11 in the Pentagon was 2 weeks away from retirement. I'm a commander. I'm 2 years away from retirement, but let's make our plans now. Let's go live the dream we've been discussing, which is to sail off into the sunset on our sailboat. And we set those plans in action and fulfilled it. 20 years to the date, I was out the door, onto the sailboat, down the Potomac, out into the Atlantic, across the Atlantic. We lived the dream.
Until
Off the coast of Croatia, we got a notice that my stepdaughter, Susan, a sergeant in the Marine Corps, had been struck and killed by lightning. And she was 6 months pregnant. So that led me to meditate every day to try to connect with her. I'm really summarizing this shortly. How do you go from that peg to the military side to now talking to
well,
people?
I want to let me back you up for one moment, because I think this is so important. And I teach this and I share this with so many people. When you saw Susan, forgive me, but when you saw her, that was an is aha the right word? But that was a life-changing moment.
An epiphany. It was it was so obvious to me that what made her Susan was no longer in that beautiful body. And I had not been religious. I did not know about the soul or spirit. I had seen my grandparents in a coffin, but I didn't have that epiphany. I'm hearing now, I had to wait for that moment when the timing was right in my soul's plan to make a complete pivot and start down this path. So staring at her body, I said, that's not Susan. She has to still exist. I'm going to find her.
I love that line. I'm going to find her.
Yeah. Yeah.
What'd you do?
I started meditating every day. 2006, when not as many people did that.
Yeah.
And it's my mission to get more people doing that, because it gives you the personal experience of expanded states of consciousness without using artificial means.
When did she pass in April in 2006?
Yes.
The reason I ask when is April 2nd, 2006 is what I consider my second birthday. That's when I had my first near-death experience.
Yeah, it was June.
Okay.
June 8th. Yeah.
So about the same time that we both had a massive shift in our lives.
Wow, how about that? Oof, goosebumps galore today already.
So you're going down the rabbit hole, and I'm going to put it away that she probably wouldn't. She remains elusive for a while so that you can do your Jedi Knight training.
That's right. She remained elusive for 3 years of daily meditation. But the reason I stuck with it was twofold. Number one, I had told her I'm going to find you, and I wasn't going to give up till I did. But number two, I was having unexpected adventures in consciousness, and I opened up to connecting with other people's loved ones. So it really was my training ground. I got to tell you, Michael, the whole story is in my new book here, Making the Afterlife Connection. This is an expanded version of my initial memoir, Messages of Hope, but this one has teaching at the end of every chapter and exercises so everybody can not spend 3 years learning.
So we won't give away the whole book, but is there, and I want to dive more big picture where we're at right now in life, but is there one simple way that we can do so that we can at least feel that our loved ones are by our side? If we can connect, if you want to dive into one simple way to connect, go for that.
Done my sip of the divine with you, the 3-minute daily practice. That is the simple way, but it doesn't answer the question you asked to how to feel them at your side. But this is the point of the sitting in peace practice, is to notice more, to be more aware, to be more present, for just 3 minutes a day. And in that pausing to notice, you have to be present with all of the sensations that are arising in awareness, with all the thoughts that continuously bubble up. You can't stop them. Don't even bother trying. And then all the feelings. So if you spend 3 minutes a day with the intention of sensing a loved one here with you and having that personal experience that you asked about, you will start to notice stuff, sensations, thoughts, and feelings that aren't what you consider your own. And that may well be feeling the presence of your loved one there with you. But you have to stop and shift from looking out here. I was looking out here for Susan for the first, I don't know how long. Susan, I have heard of people who can see spirits. Let me see you. And it just didn't work that way for me. I started to sense her inside, but that required shutting out the outside and listening, and looking for what's in the screen of the eye and feeling from the heart what the soul already knows. It's a practice.
I was having a lunch, thank you, a lunch with my parents yesterday after the doctor's visit. And I shared that I had channeled yesterday morning my mom's mom. And then all of a sudden, my mom's mom is there and has some words for her. And I just start bawling at the lunch table, fresh kitchen in Delray Beach. And I'm just crying, which to me is a sense of truth.
It is. I remember an email, Michael, from a man who said, you talk, Suzanne, all the time about how to know it's not our imagination. And when this 86-year-old man, he wrote it that way, when this 86-year-old man started bawling after feeling the presence of my wife who passed, that was all the evidence I needed. Love it.
Thank you. So are there maybe loved ones or others on the other side who act as spirit guides to guide us through this existence?
Yes. I love when you ask questions that I know you know the answer to. Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Simply, there's, in my mind, there is a difference between a spirit guide who is assigned to you from first breath to the last, who agreed to do that work with you, who's on duty all the time but can relax a bit when you sleep. But then there are family members, part of your soul family for eternity, who when they pass will still help you and assist you in any way they can.
When we go to ask for assistance, is it best? Oh, God, what a dangerous word. Even the word dangerous is dangerous. Is there when you go to your angels, for example, do you call on all the angels or do you want to go to a specific angel? When you call in a guide, is it all the guides or do you go to a specific one?
I acknowledge that at this level of awareness, I don't have the bigger picture. So for me to specify a certain being is acting from human limitation. That's limiting the possibilities. So I say, thank you all, whoever has the greatest answer for me, will you please help me with this issue?
Love it. And then I've been watching your career expand and grow and just do amazing things after amazing things, amazing things. How much of that has been the human side versus now allowing the other side to guide you each step of the way?
This is the thing that is helping me keep my sanity these days, Michael. When I look at 4 books in 2 years from professional publishers, not self-published, 4, and then a new documentary, which I look forward to talking about, and leading a couple cruises with workshops and classes, any one of those would be a lot to handle. And I keep saying to Spirit, really? But it's coming to trust that they have been guiding me moment by moment. The old me would have had to have a to-do list and get it all done at once. But for example, I just finished a chapter on a new book that's under contract with Hay House. And the guide said, now you will set that aside until after the cruise. We will work on the cruise this week. That's at the end of this month. And then they'll say, and now for an hour, do this. It's amazing. They're my project managers. And it's so clear. And the more I relax, the clearer the guidance. That's stunning to me and fun. Because if I look at the whole to-do list, I could just lose it. But instead I say, okay, what's next? And it all gets done in miraculous ways. Look at this interview. I wanted to share with the world about this making the afterlife connection, being ready. And I thought just yesterday, the guide said, you thought. They put the thought here. Sandler show would be great. And I opened up my text this morning, and there you are saying, Suzanne, you want to do an interview?
I got back. I got back from driving yesterday, and I immediately I left my parents. We had that lunch. It's after the doctor's visit. I immediately drove back, a 4 or 5 hour drive back, get back in time to teach. But there had been an opening, which if it wasn't filled, we were going to be without a show next week. And I said, Jessica, what do I do? And she said, call Suzanne.
It's the web. It's really the web connections. And then I just told you that my sister will be able to help you with your personal challenge. She's the perfect one. So Jessica was your angel. My sister is an angel to me. She'll be an angel to you. You're my angel right now. What is an angel? It's a messenger, and it helps connect the dots.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. All right. So I want to go to years ago. Was it 2009, 2010? I'm in a little Suzuki hatchback. We've got dogs in the back. We've got a documentary filmmaker in the back at one point. I don't even know how we did that. And we drove, I don't know how many miles. It was like 110 cities and I don't know how many 100 days across the country doing speaking gigs. I hear you are sharing Wolf Story coming up, and I wonder what Wolf Story is and why this is so important and where you're going to be going and why this matters to all of us.
Oh, does it matter? Oh, Michael, the timing is divine. And I'm sure that a lot of your followers, because I've been on your great show so many times, are familiar with my book, Wolf's Message. The story is profound. It's about a young man named Michael Wolf Passacarnis, who left irrefutable evidence in the form of a drawing and the way he set up his apartment and the things he said to people just before he was killed, that he knew how, when, and where he was going to be killed, struck by lightning, like my stepdaughter. He came to me after I met his parents and agreed to do a reading for them. He came to me in a drop-in visit with a message for all of humanity that truly will change the way we see ourselves and the soul's eternal journey. And I've known since that story came out, I wrote it 12 years ago, that there would be a movie about it. And we had two guys from Hollywood over the years say, I want to do this as a movie. And you get all excited. You think, oh, Hollywood, California, they've made other films. But Michael, both times they wanted to make it a story and not a documentary. And as we all know, with stories, you have to sensationalize it. You have to have big drama. And we have to have a good guy and a bad guy. There's no bad guy in this story, but it is so sensational, it doesn't need to be changed at all. So I said no, both times. Not this time. We have the perfect director, Jim Spruill, who turned Wolf's Message into a phenomenal documentary. And I can say now for the very first time publicly, because this will air just after I'm allowed to announce it, film has not even been released to anyone, yet it has been selected after viewing it for the Illuminate Film Festival in Santa Barbara.
In Sedona. Oh, where's it this time?
It was the Sedona Film Festival. They moved it
Yes.
to Barbara. And this is huge. They don't choose that many movies. And we were selected already. Just to be selected is so affirming to me that it's worth watching. I can tell you that. The story, the cinematography, the music. I had one person who watched it ahead of time who said, there is going to be no drifting off or people getting bored in this movie. It just draws you in and tells a story that will change people's lives.
Congratulations. And that was the only movie I've been featured in was at the Illuminate Film Festival in Sedona a couple years ago. Woohoo! That was a movie by Bill Bennett, a beautiful, beautiful movie. So, spoiler alert. Can you share what the message was? You're still going to want to watch the movie from Wolf that will change everybody's life.
Oh, yes. Oh, yep. And I got some. profound teaching just yesterday from it. We're like, our souls are evolving in a spiral that's ever expanding. And even though I get his message, I got it at an even deeper, more personal level yesterday that I'm playing with now. The deepest message is that we are out of balance. Big surprise, right? We talked about human versus soul, but it's because we're too much in our head and not enough in our heart. At the surface level, that makes sense. We rely on technology, the thinking mind, but who wants to give up logic and thinking? Listen to the heart? Well, let's find balance. But I was shown yesterday about what happens when we literally perceive each other from the heart. I could go on and on about that. But the bottom line is we're at each other. We have more chaos than we need because we don't realize we're not only human and we access the soul through the heart. That's one of the main messages. But after watching the film, there are actually two more messages that people will take away. Am I talking too much?
No, 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 no. I'm interested, and then I want to go about perceiving each other from the heart and a visual that I just got. So I'm bookmarking that.
Well, the other two messages are Wolf was diagnosed schizophrenic. That doesn't mean he was schizophrenic. And in the reading, you actually hear snippets of the actual reading. He said to me, it was very busy in here. I was in two worlds at once. I couldn't shut off the voices. And in the reading, you hear his dad say, yeah, he always said that. And he even has a photo. It's on the wolfsmessage.com website. You see the photo? And so it gives a whole new look at mental illness. And then the third part,
Well,
if
I
I
just
let me
you
get it out
first.
there.
I'm just so excited.
I don't want to lose this. The third one, which I never saw coming, but it's hit me like a 2x4. The message is what Wolf has to share with us takes away the fear of death. And I see now why we couldn't make this until now. Here's a spoiler alert. Because his stepmom, Beth, has been battling a severe case of leukemia for over a year and a half. You see her when she comes on camera and you kind of think, is she sick or does she just cut her hair really short? I'm not sure. But by the end of the movie, you realize she's very ill. And she makes a statement about how Wolf and his story has completely changed how she views if she dies or not without fear.
Wow. And if we, many people, most people, probably most people today, are a little on edge about everything. Is the best way to put it. But at the end of the day, almost all of our fears stem from that.
Thinking we're separate from each other and that we're separate from our source. And the thread throughout this whole film is these events could not have happened if we were separate. We're all connected.
Oh, I look forward to it. So I had dear friend and roommate, one of my bridesmen, the bridesman? Is that what you groomsmen? Thank you. Doesn't sound right. At our wedding many years ago, and he was diagnosed with schizophrenia. And in fact, when he was first diagnosed, he was put into a hospital, a room that you couldn't get out of for a bit, and it was very interesting because one day I go to visit him and I couldn't get into the hospital. The hospital was on lockdown. I came to visit him the next day and was able to see him, and he laughed and he said the aliens told me how to do it. They have a spacecraft right above here, and this is someone who doesn't know anything about electricity. And he goes, they told me how to rewire the electrical outlet box, and oops, I shorted out the whole hospital, which he did. But the understanding here was that he's not quote unquote schizophrenic or crazy. He's literally communicating with the other side. These are the gifts. There's a guest I want to have on about autism and telepathy coming up shortly, because we have a complete misunderstanding of all of this.
And the challenge is that most of us, our bodies are programmed to function in this reality. And the challenge is with what we label mental illness, it causes a great challenge for them to function in what we call normal. But to label somebody mentally ill puts them in a box and makes them feel separate and bad or wrong. And so if we can expand and see it's all part of a spectrum, we talk about being on the spectrum, but we're all on the
Exactly.
spectrum.
Yes.
Yeah. Then we can see others with greater compassion and understanding and perhaps different modalities of treatment.
And from a shamanic point of view, they talk about people who have schizophrenia as having these gifts of running energy that they just don't know how to run properly because of their physical nature. When they figure that out, incredible gifts.
Yeah. So hopefully this will help people dealing with those who are more attuned to higher energies, help them in a different way.
Thank you. So you mentioned about the mental side, you mentioned about the human side, and I'm picturing Spock, and Spock is on his tricorder. And he's being very analytical. You know, Spock from Star Trek, he's on his tricorder, he's looking at analytical things. What if we had a tricorder in front of us where, like you were saying, we're perceiving from the heart and we're looking into someone's heart or from our heart instead?
So before I forget, Michael, I do want to invite people to watch the trailer at wolfsmessage.com. Okay.
Absolutely.
The trailer.
And we will put that right down at the bottom. So if you take a look, everybody, wolfsmessage.com.
I have learned since we humans like to put things on levels and pigeonhole them, let's give us 3 levels of the heart. There's the heart that pumps, the physical level. There's the emotional heart that opens wide, but also shuts down. And then there's the spiritual heart, which just is. It doesn't beat. It doesn't love. It is the core of all of us from which all arises. And the universal heart in me, because I'm calling it universal, is the same in you. It doesn't react to whatever we might say or experience. It just exists. It is. And when we can drop our awareness into that state of just being, then we can actually experience what it's like to be anyone and anything without meaning that comes from the emotional heart. I tried this the other day. I was gazing at a squirrel. I shifted my awareness from the head where I think, oh, that's a squirrel. Oh, it's very active. I moved past the emotional heart that might have gone, oh, isn't that cute? Or I hope it doesn't run over here and bite me, either one of those, into the universal heart. And Michael, suddenly I felt the joy of running like this, and I skittered with it up the tree. I was the squirrel because I joined that place where we're the same. Imagine if we did that with others around us. My message from Spirit this morning on my Awaken Way app is all about seeing each other differently from that place.
When I watch, and I never used to, and this year, not never, but there's been time periods. This year, I admit that on occasion, I'm looking at what I've called the negative worthless stimulation, the news.
Well, it's good to, in the Navy, we need intelligence.
Yeah.
So it's good to know what's out there and
Bingo.
what people are responding to. So
and I don't have to, I don't have to dive into the story, but it is important for the audience to understand what people who are following you, people who are following me, so that we are able to respond to that and help people through these times. And at the same time, you can look at the person who is whatever is the character that you have been shown to like the least, and you can squirrel up. You can put yourself in them and have kindness and compassion and love for them, which I believe changes the whole story.
I'm going to pull up the app because I want to get today's message. They gave us a mantra, the spirit guys, that will cause resistance in your audience because it's based on what you just said. Here it is, the mantra. Give everyone their due, for they are love, as are you. Isn't that beautiful?
It's both beautiful and it is if we go old school, what a trigger. Oh, I'm going to give them their due. But then the message continues.
And then you look at this person in the news and you say, there's no way I can give them love. And that's the human dial. You mean there might be another way of looking at that? That can only happen from the universal core. And so if you're starting to get emotions, you're in the emotional heart. You haven't gone deep enough. This takes practice, and it wouldn't make sense unless you've experienced expanded states by doing the sip of the divine or other meditation.
So here's another triggering question for everybody. Forgive me, everyone. We read these stories, and we've talked about this is story, and isn't that interesting? How important, I'll use the word important, is it to let go of our illusion of control around this story?
I just did a 2-hour webinar. I do monthly connection webinars. I did it Tuesday night. They're all in the archives if anybody wants to go back and attend those of my monthly connection webinars. I spent a good 20 minutes of that 2 hours talking about asking the guides this past month, why do we focus so much on our stories? Why can't we just be? And why don't we set them aside? Within 10 minutes of asking that question, I had a very frightening experience, Michael. My guides wiped clean an aspect of my story on purpose, leaving me questioning, do I have dementia? Was this that one moment where you know you're losing your mind? My husband thought I was having a stroke because I had no recognition of two people who are very important in my life. And I was so frightened. I went, and it wasn't just instantaneous. It lasted several minutes. And he said, what do you mean you don't know them? And I went back to meditation, and I reached out to an energy healer, and I said, check out my energy field. Something just happened. And I asked my guides, I said, am I losing my mind? And they said, no. We needed to give you a visceral example of why you have a story. You can't live without it. And if the story elements don't unfold linearly, then you experience chaos. Chaos. I think I didn't answer the second part of your question, but why we have the story is because it's the only way we operate here and learn from the elements and experiences of our lives.
Wow. And they're like, ah. And it's very interesting because I had my traumatic brain injury a few years ago, got hit by the car. And so a lot of my RAM was wiped clean. And truth be told, based on my parents' experience, based on my TBIs, I'm actually going this afternoon, of all places, for an MRI of my brain. Literally.
This gives me a chance to bring up something that I can reassure you and so many people listening. Your soul is whole and complete anyway. We want to be perfect while we're here. But I have tuned in readings to many people, and the person says, do you ever tune into people who are still alive? And I say, sometimes. And they say, well, you're talking about my father. And I'll say, I'm talking to your dad's soul. I'll bet he has dementia. And she says, yes, he does. And I said, well, I'm talking to his soul, and he wants to let you know he's fine. He's aware. He's still here. And he's not suffering, even though he looks like it. And then when they pass, of course, the poor wiring is happening in the physical body, not the soul. So I'm immediately talking to them just like I did when they were still here.
It's fascinating you say that. This is totally directions I had no plans on going today. My dad's mom had Parkinson's, and for her last several years was on a feeding tube and kind of immobile is the best way to describe it, and not elegantly so. And when her tube was removed for whatever reason, and it was really time for her to go, all of a sudden she had that burst.
Lucidity.
Lucidity, completely back, knew everything that had taken place, knew everyone who had visited her. She had been fully there, but there.
Yeah, goosebumps. We're both right now. But we focused on the story because, oh, the issue of control, right? We're focused on the story because we are awareness with a capital A. I get that. And that March 11th monthly connection, if anybody wants to go into the archives of my monthly connection, I channeled my guides talking about the story and who we are as awareness. We are expressions of source, awareness itself. It wants to experience the fullness of life through you. And so it holds our focus on the story until it's finished. That's why we can't control everything, nor completely control our focus. It's being controlled by literally a higher power.
And where we get into challenges. So forgive me, it's just so fresh, everything that's taking place right now. I get my mom's brain test back results yesterday. Actually, my sister's going through it with me as I'm driving back because the doctor's visit was, it was interesting, shall we say. And we had all these numbers about her challenges, and putting that in quotes, until we get to the number of control, her rating of control, and her control was through the roof. She still was holding on to control, which actually her diagnosis is something like asoptopsia. I can't even see the exact word to say it, which means that you have a brain challenge, and the brain challenge means that you're not going to recognize that you have a brain challenge. And because of that, she holds on so tightly that it's harder to get help. This expresses the whole human condition to me, that we hold on so tightly.
If you were to look at my inbox right now, I try to keep my emails down to the point where I can see them on one screen. I go through them and clear them out but I will send myself an email if there's something I want to remember all day. If you look at my inbox right now, there's an email to self that says surrendered to the flow, not a command to myself to surrender, a reminder, remain surrendered to the flow. Listen to the difference, feel the difference. I surrender means I'm controlling something, I'm doing something. That's the human side. If I say I am surrendered to the flow, there's nothing to do. I realize I can't control everything. It's not weakness. It's here I am surrendered to the flow. Now I'm open to every possibility, and whatever's miserable in my human context right now, as I'm in this surrendered state and I realize it's flow, I actually realize that within a couple of minutes, something not miserable is likely to pop up, because that's the waves. When you're surrendered, you can surf much better without getting knocked off the surfboard.
Oh, and I love that you say wave, because what I did, as I said yesterday in the doctor's office, I tap into a wave of peace. I tap in, and I imagined this wave of energy. And there's this wave of peace. There may be this wave of, I call it like beast mode.
That this morning for a moment.
But then there's this wave of peace that's coming as well. You can tap right into that.
Michael, the peace is between the troughs and the peaks.
Of course, it's the space.
It's between every single wave, and that's why it's the center right here.
I love that. So for people who are going, I'm hearing it almost in a military voice, something to do with surrender and weakness. What can you tell me for people who are going to say that means to surrender? What you're saying is to give up.
I say, how's what you're doing working for you? I don't mean it's sarcastic. I mean it with honesty. It's not working, or you wouldn't be asking the question. And so try it. Just say, it's not, well, let me ask the guys. They say it's actually one of the strongest states you can be in, because it is admitting you are part of something greater. I'm surrendered to be guided. It's the human side that needs to be in charge and control things. To be surrendered acknowledges there may actually be a higher aspect of me.
Which to me is actually the power place. That's the core. That's the essence. That's where you grow your strength, not from the here.
Oof, oof, oof. As you said, strength. I'm taken right to a recording I have that's on the gifts page of my website, Journey of Remembrance. And guides channeled it to me in a recording studio. I had no idea what they were going to channel. It is profound, and it's my go-to when I am really in need of remembering who we all are. I don't need it too often, but it is beautiful. And they talk about strength being one of the sacred 7 aspects of the soul. It's not a human thing. It's the strength that comes from knowing I am the light. But one of the aspects is also humility, which is not I am the light. It's the utter humility of knowing that we came here to make a difference in this world just by being the light. That recording gives a transmission of strength and peace and courage and love and joy and gratitude and humility. It's phenomenal, and it's free.
So you're in a state yesterday where they flashed your hard drive. They reset it and you've gone blank.
Oh, that's what I was sharing the other day. But I'm looking at you with shock because I was dealing with hard drive issues all day yesterday.
So we'll go to yesterday, and because this is what I'm talking about. You're in a moment. You've got hard drive issues going on. Your human side comes up. What does Suzanne do?
Suzanne notices it so immediately because it so contrasts with the peace I feel throughout most moments these days that I acknowledge it and I just pause and I just shift. And the shift is just, what's a better way of dealing with this? And then in that pause, I know. Yeah, it's so helpful.
Lately, based on your military backgrounds, the world has been interesting, is a good way to put it. How have you navigated the human side? Is it simply to say, this is all story? Or what's your mechanism? Particularly, you have a military captain that you live with who's an amazing dude, an amazing, amazing dude. But it means it's right here.
Yes. And I remembered it. Like I'd say you didn't remember. We reminded you. I married a warrior. They said to expect him to be anything other than a warrior will cause you suffering. And it's, yeah. So what has been the greatest challenge for me is actually part of this journey. The news these days has caused me to see how much of a story we're all telling, because I can no longer tell what is truth at the level of story. Even when I choose a side, I don't trust it. And it doesn't matter which side, because I've really taken the time when I find it to read the news. I subscribe to one news service that gives both sides here within the United States. And it's stunning. When I read one, I go,
People are going to
yeah.
ask which one.
No, then I read one, I go, yeah. Then I
Yeah.
read the other side of the story and I say,
Yeah.
yeah. They both feel like truth when I read them. So then I just give up. I say, this is life, the disco ball. We're all seeing life through a different lens, facing at a different angle. But this is the saving grace, Michael. When you come to know the universal heart, you realize its story, and there is only one truth. I exist. Every other layer is story, layer and layers of stories. So how do we deal with that? I ask my guides, how can I bring greater peace to this situation now? And then I deal with what's in my immediate environment because I created this. I may not be able to help Ukraine or the border. I can't do anything. It's obviously not my calling, or I'd be there, or I'd have something. But right here in my immediate environment, what opportunities are arising for me to be of service, for me to serve, for me to change something in me that will bring more peace into this world? That's how I deal with that. The frustration of not knowing what to believe here. Oh God, the guides just said, don't believe any of it. Flow with it and respond with peace and love.
Beautiful. So one last question on this, and I want to go to the happiness set point. I'm excited to talk about this. If I was a fly on the wall and your husband has just heard another something, shall we say, you're at the kitchen table. How do you, because I have so many people who are watching this who say, I'm very spiritual. I love my partner very dearly, but we're not seeing eye to eye on this. What in the world do we do? So Ty comes in. It's not that you're not seeing eye to eye, but you have a very different interpretation, is my guess. How does that look?
That has changed so drastically over the last few years, because that was my journey to come to peace with whatever he says. And at first I would literally run away. I couldn't handle the energy. And then at the second, I would just cringe and I couldn't handle the energy. And now it's amazing. I sit and I acknowledge it. It flows through me. And I say, yes. And I say, that's interesting. I'm saying yes to what he said, not that I agree.
That you hear him.
I hear him. And I was given the acronym HEAR. I love that you said that, Michael. From my guides, HEAR means to listen and be with someone with humility, empathy, appreciation, and respect. In the past, I would say, you're so angry, or you can't say that. That's not hearing them. And you put up a wall and you can't connect. So when I say yes, that means I hear what you said. And then if I disagree, he may not want to hear what I have to say. Or so I tune in and I'll say, what's a good response here? Or I just say, thank you for sharing that. And many times now, he just changes the subject. He needed to get it out. It's stunning. When I don't resist, it flows. When I resist, it could ruin the entire day. So I've learned to listen to my own BS, belief systems. I listen and it's saying, he can't think that. He can't say that. Of course he can. And so what can I change in me? Allowing everybody to be who they are and believe what they want, and finding peace in me. This is what I came here to learn to do, to be a master surfer. And I'm not there yet, but wow, what a journey to see that it's getting better. And I love him to pieces. And sometimes now he'll say something and he'll stop and he'll say, you don't want to hear that. I love him so much. I know we signed up for each other. I know he came here to push my buttons and I push his.
Oh, yeah.
I know I make him uncomfortable with some of my, what he calls kumbaya BS. But through it all, we love each other because we made a soul agreement. I know it, to be here. Don't anybody take abuse from anyone. He is never abusive. He has never hurt me. He never says anything critical to me. He supports me 100%. And that's why I know this is based on love. But don't anybody take abuse. And we are worthy of respect ourselves. So if somebody is saying to you, what you're saying is BS, I would respect the self and say, yes. Notice how we say yes. I hear you. To you, it's BS. I respect my path. Thank you very much. That's it.
Beautiful. And there's going back a little bit. I'm hearing the discussion between both of you, and I have this very interesting portal or vision even of your husband his heart is open, he's sharing. And when you hold that space, there's actually an energy that's going back into his heart and going through back to everyone who is sharing his beliefs and helping, dare I say, diffuse the bomb and shifting the energy, because this is all a symphony, a musical symphony of everything. Your energy is shifting the music of the whole thing.
And I just want to say that his beliefs aren't wrong any more than other
No,
people's beliefs. They're their beliefs. They are absolutely right to the person having them. So I'm not at
thank you.
all saying he's wrong.
No,
It's,
but what it does
but I
is it
love that.
shifts everything.
Yeah, yeah. Mm.
So, all right. Well, go ahead.
No, that's it. I'm just glad we're having this discussion because I know it's happening in a lot of households. And if the couple's the same, then they have other people they know. And uh, if we can learn to hear each other, you're received differently.
It's one of the questions that I've been asked most lately is what do I do? What do I do? And I
You say
say,
yes, and yes, I hear you. And I may have a different way of seeing that. Are you open to hearing it? If not, yes, I can understand where you are. Thank you.
can you imagine? Well, it's so important to me talking and listening. This hearing that you're saying is to me everything, because it becomes one heart again. If we could all sit around a dinner table together, not the family table where things are being thrown at each other, but we can sit around a table and truly listen to one another. There are no longer any sides.
And the challenge is that most people, as soon as they hear something that counters or conflicts with their BS, is already thinking of what they're going to say next. They're no longer hearing, they're no longer listening. So active listening is a practice in presence. We get practice every day, all day on the spiritual path. People say, how can I live my spiritual path when I'm surrounded by people who aren't spiritual? Are you kidding? This is your laboratory. It's your playground.
There's a fear in people that if somebody says the opposite, it's not a conscious fear. If somebody says the opposite of what I'm thinking, I will be annihilated.
Oh, oh, okay. Where did that one come up? Annihilated. Oh, I've written about it in my new book that comes out next year. Annihilated doesn't mean to kill something. I looked it up. It means from the Latin annihilate, to return to nothing, no thing. Your story is not a thing. Your ego is not a thing.
This is
It's a
fun.
state. What's that?
This is fun.
So you're not killing it. You're saying, oh, that's a state of consciousness. That's a belief system. What is a what is a thing? Is there anything here that doesn't change at all? Not a thing. It's my true essence. Can't kill that. Wow. What if I tap into that? Ego doesn't like it, but you can't kill it. You just say, ah, I recognize you. Thank you for that. Now, would you step aside while I choose something better?
And it
I
allows you to
literally say
have,
that.
yeah,
I do. Every time I sit to do a reading for someone, may
yep,
I, by the way, plug this book, Mediumship, because
of course.
that book came out since we talked last. This is how anybody can have connections with across the veil or notice the signs from loved ones. But every time I sit to do a reading, and I don't have the time to do too many these days, there's this little voice saying, uh-oh, what if you don't get anything? And I say, seriously, every time what you just have to poke up there, even though we know what we know. And I just say, I remember that's just what the left hemisphere of the brain does. Thank you for that. We know better these days. I don't listen to that anymore. I hear you. Go set aside. If you want to do something helpful, then you help me hold my focus once the spirit steps in. Give your ego something helpful to do.
I love that. So I teach my School of Mystics, and I teach each week. And oftentimes I will come to the morning of teaching, and I don't know what I'm teaching yet. And the mind wants to go.
But they've never let you down, have they, spirit or your higher self, ever?
Not a single time. It does require, though, it does require letting go of the mind. So that the mind can hold space if you'd like, but you have to actually be there and be present to get the message. And as long as you do that, which is every single time, it's all good.
It's beautiful. I love that you're demonstrating that.
So tell me about the happiness set point, and I wonder what that has to do with the world today.
It has so much to do with the world today. You will meet some people who are just less than positive all the time. The world is out to get them. They're down. They probably have a lower happiness set point than woohoo, Michael Sandler. Okay, you have
That was
a
good, Suzanne. Woohoo, that was good.
that's a good one. Yeah. Well, it's infectious when around you. But I have a pretty high happiness set point too. I always have. My parents call it my enthusiasm.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. What I learned from studying neuroscience enough to be dangerous is that you come into life with a certain happiness set point. And if you win the lottery, woohoo, for about a year. And after a year, you're going to go back down into your normal happiness set point if it was low. If you have a high happiness set point and somebody you love dearly passes, you're going to not have a very high happiness level. About a year later, or grief is changeable, but whatever really brought you down, you are eventually going to come back up to your happiness set point. Understanding mediumship will help those who are grieving to get back in battery sooner, but feel that grief. But here's the thing. This is what's so hopeful. External events will not change your happiness set point permanently. Meditation will raise it permanently. And that's probably why I have even greater enthusiasm for life these days. It's probably why, even though I have some setbacks or have moments when I'm knocked off balance, I come back up higher than I ever used to be.
So if somebody says, sorry, please continue.
No, it's that sitting in expanded states and feeling the underlying joy that's always present and being able to tap into that.
So if somebody says, I feel the world is gray, there's an opacity, there's a heaviness, a stickiness to it. And I just don't see, maybe they even had a very challenging childhood. They have never had that sense of happiness. And they may even say, if I sit, I'm afraid of what will happen if I simply sit with my mind because of this unhappiness.
My dear friend Irene taught me something important about that. After her daughter died, she told me she was afraid to sit and just observe the mind because she knew she'd be swamped by these waves of grief that took the legs out from under her. And she finally said, I give up. I surrender. She actually did the act of I surrender. I'll just sit. And here came that wave of grief. But she had finally surrendered. And she said it got to here and it went poof. Because she was willing to look at it and feel it just like that, Michael. And she is filled with joy these days. Not every day. I just visited her yesterday and she's going through a lot right now, but we all know now what's underneath it all. It's all okay at a deeper level. But meditation helps you experience that deeper level.
This is Sharky 2 or Sharky Duh. Sharky 1 keeps on wandering off with Hannah Bear, my daughter. So I've got Sharky 2. This is a snow globe with a little shark inside of it. The meaning behind it is that when you sit with the shark and you spend time with the shark, what you end up finding out, we'll see if we can point it, is the shark is actually smiling at you on the inside. The very thing that you are afraid to look at and very afraid to face may actually have the biggest grin and be the greatest, almost BFF, friend in your life once you're willing to face it.
See, the heart knows truth, and that is truth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So from happiness, from this set point, how much do you like to dare I
Oh,
say,
could I go back a second?
of
So to the
course.
person who has been gray their whole life, could it be that their soul wanted to experience life with a low set point? There is nothing wrong with that. We think we are guaranteed happiness, and this journey is all about finding happiness. It's not. It's about finding peace, peace, and ending suffering.
It brings up an excellent point. Somebody can say, well, Suzanne, you're very spiritual. Michael, you're very spiritual. Whatever. This person is very spiritual. And yet stuff still happens to you. We didn't come here for the, as you're going to use your term there, kumbaya experience. We hope to have it,
We really
but we
did.
came here for life.
We're just circling back now to what we said at the beginning, to surf the waves. This is life in human form. It's going to have challenges, and I know there will be challenges ahead, and I know that people I love will die, and I know that I may face certain challenges that I don't see coming yet, but I'm not going to say this can't be happening to me. Now I will say, oh, isn't that interesting what's unfolding right now? As I am surrendered to the flow, it will be interesting to see how this comes out as I'm guided to what choices to make.
Thank you. And on that note, at the same time, do you do any meddling on the other side of the veil, whether that's parallel realities or trying to jump to different timelines or manifestation, anything of this sort?
I don't go into the future so much as if I had noticed something in me that's triggered, I'll ask a guide, even a spirit animal, to take me back to when that happened in my present incarnation and help me change my reaction to it at the time. I can't change the event because that was a shared event with others, but I can change how the Suzanne story reacted and then bring that change with me forward. And it's worked very well.
Can you give me an example of that, what that would look like?
Nothing's coming to mind, Michael. Oh, an
All
example,
right.
a personal example, but
Yeah,
say,
yeah, yes. Yes, 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 exactly.
uh, well, I will give you an example. I know that my mother accidentally allowed me to roll off a countertop when I was 7 weeks old, and I fractured my skull. It's interesting that they say that many people who have psychic abilities suffered head trauma. You,
That explains a lot here too.
but I
Speaking
know,
personally, I was dropped on my head, literally, by my mom. Sorry, mom. Says a
well,
lot.
I've learned that she, instead of saying, "Oh my God, Susie, my baby," she screamed in terror and held me, picked me up right away, and screamed at me, and um, it was a less than positive experience. And I've actually gone back to that and been not afraid and didn't take that energy on. And yeah, it just changes the way you react to traumatic things.
So if you can go back to that experience, obviously you can, you go back to that experience, you change that experience, then that has a ripple effect on your energy through everything and every reaction and everything you say and everything you do moving forward on the timeline.
Yes, and then I would also do tapping like you tapped, get rid of that energy. And very good stuff.
I love it. So is there anything that you do then, or is it how much, forgive me, Ty, how much do you try to drive the ship at all or say, this is what I'm looking for, or this is what I want?
From him?
No, I'm just using since a ship captain. How much are you trying to
Oh,
drive the ship of
in
Susanne's
my life.
existence?
And
Yes.
I'm checking with the guides because I don't want to misstate things. They said that I have found a good balance, a good balance. Uh, we still need to make a lot of human decisions. I have 7 assistants helping me with my work now, and so I still delegate, but I give them a lot of freedom. That's very necessary in our human world, but I try to always allow it to be guided by spirit. So this is what I love about the spiritual journey. It's about integrating soul awareness, the higher self, with our human stories for balance.
Thank you. And then going back to so we have the team of 7 here, and you have a team on the other side. and my guess is it's seven to infinity. How on a daily basis, if you walk me through this, I imagine you're starting your day or early in your day, you're doing a meditation.
Yep.
How do you coordinate with your team to guide you through a day?
My spirit team,
Yeah.
I've gotten through practice into the habit of just, you see me do that little, I'm just tuning in, I'm listening, I'm noticing in my body what's next. It's not even a dialogue anymore. It's just awareness. I've just trained myself to be present and aware, and then to be aware when, oh, I haven't done that. I haven't tuned in hours. How's that working for me now? I'm stressed. Let's take a nice breath, much slower than that, and let's tune in. Oh, we're on track. Okay.
Is there one practice you're doing now or in recent years that you weren't doing before?
It's just the ongoing increase in trust. Yeah, I totally trust spirit now to guide every moment and to guide these multiple big pins I'm juggling. Multiple right now, like a book under contract, a book that's being launched, the film festival, the film release, the cruise, any one of which would just, so it's trusting that we're not going to drop any of those pins because spirit's got this and they're all important. But so important, but also honoring my path, my husband and my two dogs, and knowing that there are certain sacred moments of the day, believe it or not, taking the dogs to the DOGPARK.
Thank you for spelling that. I get this.
They're right here. And if I said it, they'd go crazy. But we've already done that today because it's sacred time for balance. And then finding an hour for me to exercise. That's what keeps the body in balance and is very important. And then finding time for my husband and enjoying all 3 meals a day, sitting down, setting the phone aside, turning it off 3 meals a day with him. That's part of trusting that everything's going to get done, because if I don't put my priority on my family, then I've lost everything.
That's why I drove down, dropped everything, drove down to my parents, and just last week said, you know what? We're going to have a second honeymoon next week. And I'm not going to worry about if this is taken care of or that's taken care of, because the idea didn't come from me. And we're going to let it take care of itself. What is the most important message for people today as we are, well, with all of my recent testing, as our cortisol levels may be a little bit high?
My guides end every daily message with the phrase, "You are so very loved." If people are open to receiving that, and just the very act of putting your hands like this and pressing in a little will activate that awareness. If we all knew that, we would know everything's going to be okay. We are loved. Love is the core of our existence. And I'm not talking about, oh, I love you, Michael, and I love my husband, Ty. It's divine love, which means I acknowledge there is no separation. There's not even air between here and here. This is energy information. It's all undivided wholeness and flowing motion, as David Bohm, the physicist, said. This is all life, love in full expression. And we are that. If we all knew you are so very loved because you are the expression of love with a capital L, we wouldn't worry about a thing. We would trust the divine order that comes out of apparent chaos, and we would be surrendered and flow with and as that love.
Thank you. I want to go to making the afterlife connection for a minute. What is the, if you could summarize all of it in whatever, what does that mean to you?
The subtitle, and again, this is not out yet, but it's available for pre-order on Amazon and other book places. The journey from doubt to knowing that death is not the end. So it's my journey, but what I've learned, I share at the end of each chapter in an exercise so that people can amplify their own journey and come to that knowing. And it's not just that our loved ones who have passed are still here. It's, what does it mean that death is not the end? Let's make the most of this life here and now. Let's learn to serve. Let's bring more love from the inside outside. Let's turn it up.
I love that you say that about surf, because when I came home yesterday, Hannah Bear jumped up on the couch behind me here and said, I'm surfing. She's never done this before. I'm surfing, Daddy. I'm surfing, Daddy. She had just been out to the beach and watched surfers for the first time. And so she's going, I'm a surfer. I've never heard her say this before.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Is there one more exercise you can share with us? It can be from the book, it can be from elsewhere, to help us to be able to surf.
Yes. When you sit quietly in the sip of the divine, believe that you have somebody that's going to hear you. When you say with a playful attitude from within, put something meaningful in my hand right now. You can hold it out or just do it in your mind's eye, but watch and notice what shows up in your hand. And if it doesn't make any sense, you'll see something immediately. Then you say, why did that show up? And you're going to get a message. And see how playing that game allows you to tap into insights that you might not otherwise get.
Thank you. One more thing I want to ask about before we go, where we can find your book, your program, everything coming up, is what is the prayer that you've done, and how have you seen this in action with Ty when you would go out in the bus?
Oh, well, the prayer we say every time before we get underway, he actually turns to me and he says, say your prayer, is, angels, please protect people, pets, and property all the way to our destination and beyond. That's just the protection prayer. But I have two other prayers I'd love to just share. One is, angels, spirit, may my lessons be as painless as possible.
Kind, gentle, easy, good is what I say.
The other one is, forgive me for ever thinking I was anything less than love. That's when I make mistakes. Yeah.
Brings us right back to humility too.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. So where can people go to find your work? What do you, the dangerous question. What do you have coming up? What is all the goodness? Where do people go to find it?
So wolfsmessage.com, no apostrophe, just wolfsmessage.com has the trailer and the whole map of the US with all the cities we're going to be at for live screenings where we show it and talk about it for 2 hours. And then SuzanneGiesemann.com, scroll down from the main banner on the homepage, featured events. I'm so excited, Michael. I'm going to be coming to Atlanta, Georgia in June, for a conference where I'm with other authors from the same publisher that did the mediumship book, in really great spiritual topics all day Saturday, and then a full day with me on Sunday in Atlanta. It's called Expand, and you can find that at SuzanneGiesemann.com under featured events. Also, a whole weekend at the Omega Institute, making the connection, learning to connect with loved ones across the veil in July. A conference in Denver with Humanity's Team. And again, that new book launching, Making the Afterlife Connection. You can find out all about that at SuzanneGiesemann.com.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And if there's one thing you're most excited about for this coming year?
The thing I'm most excited about is just that we are reaching more and more people. And you're just part of that today, Michael. Just so more people come to live what I call the awakened way, a divinely guided, consciously connected life. It changes everything.
Thank you. I'll ask last words of wisdom briefly, but just this is the most important thing. We watch this and then we go back to our news or whatever, and we think everything might be going to heck in a handbasket. But what if it's going in the reverse? What if we're all coming together? What if we're all waking up, as you're saying, the awakened way? What if we are all connecting now, especially now, at an even higher level?
Oh, I know we are. It's just it just depends on your perspective. Right.
Any last words you want to share? I think you may have actually just given them, but
No, I know. I forgot to mention that I was interviewed on Gaia TV, GAIA. They have a streaming service like Netflix, and they're fantastic. If you're interested in Michael's work and my work, Gaia is just awesome. And I was just interviewed by George Norrie on his Beyond Belief show, and I must have been guided in that interview because I listened to it yesterday and said, oh my God, I got to say everything I wanted to, just like today.
and I watched that too. It was fun. That was actually a really fun interview, and the connection back and forth, that was really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you, Michael. Always great to sit with you.
Thank you so much. This was beautiful. This was fun. This was my favorite with you, and we've done a bunch of these. So thank you again. So for everyone out there, this is Michael Sandler saying, be well, have fun, recognize you are love, you come from love, you couldn't be anything other than love, no matter how much you try. So you might as well surrender, say it's interesting, and be the love that you are. And above and beyond all else, shine bright. Woohoo! No superlatives. Wow, wow, wow. Another amazing interview. Really my favorite interview with Suzanne ever. I just love the connection, the banter, the going back and forth, and playing at this high level, which you get to play with as well. On that note, if you want to play with me at this high level and with so many like-minded souls, come join us in the School of Mystics, where we do help shift your energy and bring you up, 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 like Suzanne saying, where you don't go back down to that lower energy level. We raise your set point. School of Mystics, 4 Wednesdays each month, live or recorded, whichever way you'd like it, with so many beautiful like-minded souls. We've got that link down below. Would love to see you there. Also, we have automaticwriting.com. If you want to learn how to channel, connect with loved ones, connect on the other side of the veil with your angels, with your guides as well. Simply go to Automatic Writing. That's that link down below, automaticwriting.com, with live classes once a month as well. Chances are there's one coming up and just a few days after or before you see this as well. And what else do we have? dailywoohoo.com, where we help bring your energy up, 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 way up each and every day. Free newsletter from me where I tap in through automatic writing, get a message from the guides, bring it back to you. That's dailywoohoo.com. Here's a link to the next amazing show. Love you so, so much, and keep on shining bright. Woohoo! How does it get any better than this? Lots of love, everyone.